Attention, you're listening to The Todd Huff Show, America's home for conservative, not bitter talk and education. Be advised, the content of this program has been documented to prevent and even cure liberalism, and listening may cause you to lean to the right. And now, coming to you from the Full Suite Wealth Studios, here's your conservative but not bitter host, Todd Huff.
Conservative, not bitter indeed, my friends. Thank you for tuning in today to today's Toddcast. It's my pleasure to be here. Today, I want to talk about a couple things. One thing that happened over the weekend, something else that happened, I believe it was yesterday on, yes, my friends, on The View. I know we talk about The View from time to time on this program. Andy Beshear, the governor of Kentucky, was on there, and he was talking about one issue in particular and how his faith was, I guess, central to his decision to, veto the legislation. So I want to talk about that because these things matter to me. I think they matter in our society overall, and that's where we want to head today. So thank you for tuning in, my friends. Let's get to it today. I'm glancing here at notes. But my friends, before we get started, if you're curious about Kratom, or you're just trying to figure out who you can trust. In fact, I had a friend, longtime friend, text me yesterday who had listened to the program, and he had heard me mention Christopher's Organic Botanicals and Kratom, and he told me that he had tried what he now believes to be the synthetic garbage I was talking about of Kratom when he was on a trip to another city years ago, and he understood. He understood that there's some bad stuff out there, and that natural Kratom is much different than synthetic Kratom sold by some shady people who've taken shortcuts and don't offer a clean product. But that is what you'll get. You'll get a clean product that's responsibly sourced, tested for purity at Christopher's Organic Botanicals. Again, this is a clean, honest alternative for people looking for more, for a more natural way to support their health. And so you can start with their Kratom Starter Pack. It's a great way to begin. Coupon code Todd Huff will save you 10% at Christopher'sOrganicBotanicals.com. Again, Christopher'sOrganicBotanicals.com. Coupon code Todd Huff is going to save you 10% on your first purchase. Truth, tradition, transparency, my friends, not the synthetic junk. The real stuff done the right way. It gets a bad name because there's bad products out there. But this, my friends, is a company that you can trust. Christopher'sOrganicBotanicals.com. Okay, so let's begin here. I want to talk about Trump going after who he calls a loser. A loser who made comments about hating America. He's an Olympic athlete. This is an article in the New York Post. This happened over the weekend, I guess. But I wanted to talk about this headline here. Trump slams, quote, loser Olympian Hunter Hess over mixed emotions representing the United States. I'm going to read a bit from this. President Donald Trump bashed Team USA Olympic. Hold on here. I got a pop-up that's covering my article. The heck is going on here? Bashed Team USA Olympic skier Hunter Hess for expressing mixed emotions while representing the Stars and Stripes at the Milan Winter Olympic Games. U.S. Olympic skier, this is Trump's post on Truth Social, U.S. Olympic skier Hunter Hess, a real loser, capital L, by the way, says he doesn't represent his country, capital C, in the current Winter Olympics. If that's the case, he shouldn't have tried out for the team, Trump says, and it's too bad he's on it. Very hard to root for someone like this. Make America great again. To that point, it is hard. Is it not? I can agree with that sentiment that says it is hard to root for someone on Team USA who is out there complaining about America. Listen, we all understand. We all understand that America is not a perfect country. We all understand that America has people, right? People in it. And nobody's perfect. We understand that there are policies, elections that you may not like or agree with or whatever. But why does that make you? This has always puzzled me. I mean, I understand in the sense that this guy, he's either gotten the memo, he's been around this enough to know that this is how you score points with the media. This is how you get attention from the media. This is how you get fawned over by the media. But he also may be a true believer in this stuff. You can't underestimate that either. He may really believe what he says here, which I'll get to in a moment. The article continues here. Multiple Olympians, including U.S. figure skater Amber Glenn and British-American skier Gus Kenworthy, have criticized the Trump administration at this year's games, particularly for its polarizing approach to immigration enforcement. It's only polarized. I talk about this stuff every day. The tactics and the definition of words and terms that are used to try to further the cause of the left, which, by the way, is lawlessness and open borders, and to try to position itself put itself in a position to win the argument against conservatives, against people who believe in the rule of law. I can see right through these. The tactics are so crystal clear to me at this point. It is so mind-numbing to listen to some of these things. It's not polarizing. How is it polarizing to enforce the law? It is wild to me that we have gotten to this point. We have a massive problem with illegal immigration that has been caused by complete neglect for decades and decades along the southern border. We've talked about this just a lot, I know. But there are this problem, just because you've stopped the problem from getting worse doesn't mean that you don't have a heck of a mess to clean up now. And that's what we're doing. What is this? And I like the New York Post here. I'm not trying to get on who wrote this piece. I'm not trying to get on Cooper Albers here, who wrote the piece. But what do you mean the polarizing approach to immigration enforcement? That is not at all. Why can't you say for enforcing the law, for deporting illegal aliens? That's what this is about. Be telling me it's about a polarizing approach? It's only polarizing. It's amazing. I can't deal with it. I don't want to deal. The older you get, the less you care about dealing with stupid. And I don't care to deal with this anymore. This is not enforcing the law. Is not polarizing. Just like I heard Mayor, what's the mayor of Chicago? Brandon, can't think of his last name at the moment. But I saw he was being interviewed on MSNBC or some such thing. And he made the comments that, well, first of all, did you know that 30%, there's been a 30% drop in the homicide rate since Trump's increased enforcement in the city of Chicago? The mayor, which I'm waiting on Oz, what is it, Johnson? Brandon, right? Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago. He comes out and he acknowledges almost in passing, well, yeah, the murder rate and I think the gun violence or gun crime rate, all these things have dropped like 30%. But he wants to take the credit for that, like Michael Scott. Michael Scott wanted to take all of the credit and none of the blame for the Willy Wonka golden ticket idea. But Brandon Johnson wants to do the same. He wants all the credit for the reduction in violence and the homicide rate and all that, gun violence. But he doesn't want to acknowledge, the other part of his statement was, where ICE agents are present, there is an increase in violence, as though that's the problem of ICE. No, no, no. The problem with that is that the people are obstructing and breaking the law with ICE, right? That's the problem. So they say, well, look, wherever ICE shows up, there's more problems. Yeah, because you're causing the problems. Mayor Johnson, in fact, you're actually, just like Jacob Fry, just like Tim Walz, just like J.B. Pritzker, you are fueling this. You are giving the people who are out there a belief, an argument, some nonsensical drivel that they take as a calling card to do whatever they want to do, and they believe that they're on the moral side of history here, that they're on the right side of this. They are not on the right side of this. And so if it's polarizing, immigration is polarizing, enforcing it is polarizing, it's because the people who are getting upset about it are the ones who don't want to follow the law. That's what's polarizing. There's nothing polarizing about this. I understand if you want to change the law, but you don't change the law by breaking the law and obstructing the law from being enforced by the people who are supposed to enforce it. It's just crazy talk here, even in this New York Post article, who I typically have no problems with. But we continue here. But it was the 27-year-old Hess, a fixture on the U.S. national team since 2017, who received a direct response from the commander-in-chief. Speaking with reporters on Friday last week, Team USA skiers, particularly Hess, sparked controversy by explaining that wearing the American flag doesn't signify his support of everything going on back in the States. Here's what he said. It brings up mixed emotions to represent the U.S. right now. Oh, wah. Cry me a river, Hunter Hess. You got to be kidding me. It brings up mixed emotions to represent the U.S. right now. It's a little hard, he continues. There's obviously a lot going on that I'm not the biggest fan of, and I think a lot of people aren't. Well, maybe in your circle, Hunter, but there's a lot of people cheering on. Finally, a country who's enforcing its laws. Finally, a country who decided it had a border that it was going to secure, Hunter. There's a lot of people that are cheering this sort of thing on. I don't know if you've looked at the polls, but a lot of people are very content and believe that these things need to be enforced and that people that are in this country illegally need to be deported. And by the way, even if they didn't, that doesn't change the law. The law says that that's exactly what should happen. He continues here, just because I'm wearing the flag doesn't mean I represent everything. Doesn't mean I represent everything going on in the U.S. I don't know what that really means. But anyway, his teammate Chris Lillis added this. I'm heartbroken about what's happening in the United States. Moment of silence here. We should take a moment to just, acknowledge that Chris Lillis is heartbroken. My friends, we'll do that here. A moment of silence for him. But he continues. I think he says that as a country, we need to focus on respecting everybody's rights. Well, no kidding. Well, who? Oh my gosh. The people who say things that have no idea what's going on just makes my mind want to explode sometimes. We need to focus on respecting everybody's rights and making sure that we are treating our citizens. You got to be kidding me. Our citizens. Does he not know? Does he not understand, Chris Lillis? Listen, maybe you've tuned into MSNBC one too many times. I don't know. Maybe you went, I don't know if he went to college. I don't know anything about it, but it makes me think he's been reading the wrong books, listening to the wrong information, been taught by some lunatics along the way. Something's going on here. This is not about citizens, Chris. He wants to make sure we're treating our citizens as well as anybody. Okay, that would pertain to the people who aren't supposed to be here. That's the illegal aliens, with love and respect. Are they treating ICE officers with love and respect? Does that apply both ways, Chris? I hope that when people look at athletes competing in the Olympics, they realize that's the America we're trying to represent. I think you're overthinking this, Chris. I think you've overshot the target, as to how people, care about what you're representing. People love their country. And I as one who, I have always loved my country. And let me tell you this. This may be a news flash to somebody out there. I don't know. But I actually loved my country even when Biden was president. I didn't like it when Biden was president. I didn't like a lot of what was going on when Biden was president. I disliked a lot of things about U.S. policy, about elections, under multiple administrations. I didn't like that we were killing millions of babies. We had 9 white old men in black robes in 1973 make up a law that didn't exist, predicated based upon a constitutional concept that was fabricated out of pure air and applied into some crazy way to say that there's a constitutional right to kill an unborn child. This was Roe versus Wade, 1973. To kill an unborn child, and that you can do that up to whatever period of time at the end of the first trimester, or whatever they came up with, right? Based on what? There was nothing. They just made it up. They made it up. So that should have never happened, number one. And I also, the ruling, whether it should have happened or not, was reprehensible and disgusting and wicked and evil and illegal and unconstitutional. But I'll tell you this, if I was an Olympic athlete, never was good enough to be an Olympic athlete. In fact, I don't think the Winter Games, I don't think there's a single thing about any winter sport in the Winter Olympics that I have ever had the slightest bit of things to do with. I've been on ice skates maybe once or twice in my life. I've skied. I've never skied either, by the way. So I can't relate to that. But even if I did, I wasn't good enough. But I will tell you this, I would not be embarrassed to be an American. I would never think to publicly shame my country for something like this. I suppose there could be something that I would have spoken out against, but I never would have, like the virtue signaling and the condescension they have towards the rest of America is just wild to me. If you think about this country, I think about these things a lot. The historical perspective of having the nation of America on this planet, the average person has no clue. No clue. During after the World War II and then building up to the end of the 1980s, we had this thing called the Cold War between the United States of America and the USSR, right? Russia and the Soviet satellite states. And it was a battle between two global superpowers. And it was largely a Cold War. There might have been some proxy wars that were fought in places like Afghanistan. And it got messy. Listen, it got messy. We got Osama bin Laden and all this stuff. We got the Mujahideen and just a lot of stuff. I'm not here to rehash that. We have Star Wars programs. We have these summits between Reagan and Gorbachev. I was a kid during this time, but I remember these things. I studied these things, not as a kid, as I got older, but I remember those things. And Reagan referred to the Soviet Union as the evil empire. And that upset people at the time. I also remember Ronald Reagan when he gave the speech outside in front of the Berlin Wall, and he said, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall." And all of Reagan's advisors said, "Don't do it. You shouldn't say it." He said it anyway. It's one of the most memorable lines, the most iconic lines of Reagan's administration. And by the way, he had many, by the way. Reagan said the 7 most terrifying words in the English language are, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." Reagan had a lot of wit and wisdom and sarcasm and humor and brilliance when he was president of the United States that we could choose from. But I would have to say at the top of that list was Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. And all the people in the political class told him, "Oh, you can't do it." But it turned out to be something that is iconic that we're still talking about all of these years later, my friends. And I think, what would have happened? What would have happened to this world if the winner of the Cold War was the USSR? People think that it's bad today, but the United States, listen, is not perfect. I get it. The United States has done some bad things. I get it. But this country, my friends, is a shining city on a hill. I don't think the average person knows what to compare the United States against. They're comparing the United States against some fantasy utopia that exists only in their minds. They are not dealing in reality. They are not dealing in a situation where the abstract idea has to work in the real world where the proverbial rubber meets the road. They don't have any idea what they're talking about. That's why so many of these people go to positions of professorship. And again, I'm not here to attack. There's some wonderful professors out there. Please don't think I'm throwing everybody together. But I'm telling you this, it's attractive for some of these people to go to be a professor because their ideas don't have to work in the real world, and they can tell the class sitting in that little bubble of a classroom how the world should work outside the walls. And if you disagree with the professor inside those walls, you're going to get a bad grade. So kids participate, they play the game, whatever. Yet what the professor is telling them is utter garbage and nonsense. I had some of these classes. I've shared some of those stories. My last class at Butler was a class called Is Capitalism Really Better? I just talked about that a week or two ago here on this program. America is a shining city on a hill. I got more to say about this, my friends, more than I even prepared to say as I'm getting into it. It's lighting a flame of fury, a flame of gratitude, really, inside my soul. Friends, let's face it, there are a lot of companies out there that don't share your values. The good news is you don't have to invest in them. At 4-8 Financial, they specialize in biblically responsible investing. They'll help you screen out companies that go against your faith, your values, and they'll create a plan for you that's tailored to your goals. They'll do the heavy lifting so you can focus on what really matters, your faith, your family, your future. If you want to see if your current investments align with your values or what degree they do align with your values, all you have to do is take a quick and easy assessment. 48financial.com/Todd is where you can go to take that assessment. Again, 48financial.com/Todd is where you go. 48 Financial, because your values matter and so does your money. The time does as well. I've got to take a break, my friends. Sit tight, back in just a minute. Welcome back. I'm going to do my best to get to Andy Bashir. I may not. I realized in what I said last segment, this is lit a fire within me, talking about my gratitude for this country. And listen, these Olympians can say whatever they want to say. You know, the media, even as I was preparing for this, I use ChatGPT to kind of help me put together my notes, and I share my thoughts, and I ask for research on things, additional sources, and all that kind of stuff as I just put together what I want to talk about for the day. And occasionally, regularly, Chat will want to change what I talk about. And I have to routinely tell Chat, listen, dude, you make a wonderful servant, but a terrible master. I don't care what you think. You're supposed to do what I tell you. You're not here to formulate my thoughts. You're here to give me information that supplements what I'm trying to communicate today. And Chat wanted to talk about how this is an issue of free speech. Pause everything. I've been talking about this now the entire first segment. Have you heard me once say that this Olympic athlete should not have been allowed to say it? Did you hear me say that the government should go over to Milan and put this guy in cuffs and bring him back here to put him into the clink? I didn't say that because I don't believe that. That's ridiculous. But this is the tactic that's used by the left. If there's speech out there that I disagree with or that someone on the conservative side of the aisle disagrees with, they immediately say, well, you can't silence a person to say it. Well, no kidding, Sherlock. I didn't say that the person couldn't say it. I said it's not speech that I agree with. And I've got the right to say what I don't like about it. I've got the right to say what I think is a problem with it. I've got the right to try to persuade people who are listening to me to see the damage, the danger, the risk, the lies that are included in that speech. And they understand this. It's just a tactic to keep from having the real discussion. And I have been bothered by lots of policies. I see gun laws come out in the United States that I don't agree with. I see, I mean, what about these programs that exist in cities that allow the government to be manipulated and people to take care of, I should say take advantage of, allegedly, these programs and get federal dollars to do things, well, that's just basically fake businesses in some situations, maybe in many situations around the country. I don't like that. I don't like some of the cultural stuff that happens in this country today. I don't like that. By the way, I saw TMZ did an online poll asking people to vote which halftime show they liked better. And I believe from Super Bowl Sunday, the clown that performed at the Super Bowl, and then the Turning Point USA event, which we talked about yesterday. Their poll, the poll that they conducted, basically showed a 3-1. I don't remember the exact results, but it was basically 75%, give or take, that preferred the Turning Point USA halftime show over the garbage that was playing at the Super Bowl, which is fantastic, by the way. But regardless, there's a lot of things that I don't agree with in America, but America at its core is a good thing. And as I was talking about last segment, the average person has no idea how much darker a place the world would be without the United States of America in it. As a superpower, dare I say, this country has done remarkable amounts of good. It's not perfect. It's not the total solution. Friends, listen, I want you to love this country. I want you to see the benefits of this country. That will benefit all of us immensely. This is a great place. We have opportunities. We have freedom. We have free markets. We have the Bill of Rights. We have founding documents that reference our divine creator and how those rights are given to us by him and not by our government. These are beautiful things, wonderful, wonderful things. And I hope that we can all come to love and appreciate this place even more than we do today, while fully recognizing her faults and failures and the mistakes that some politicians and so forth have made. Of course, those things exist. That is to be human. But the system that we operate within, the foundations that this culture, society, government are built upon are a good thing, a wonderful thing, in fact. And listen, I know every time I say this, I have to put the disclaimer. Of course, I'm not talking about slavery in that group of things. That has to be said. It's crazy that it still has to be said. But keep in mind that while this nation, the principles that it outlined in the Declaration, the Declaration of Independence, were wonderful, wonderful ideals. We didn't live up to them in many ways, and in other ways we still aren't today. But that doesn't take away the things that are obviously good about this country. In fact, the founders put in place mechanisms by which things that we ultimately use to fix and to make right the issue of slavery over the course of time. It included even a civil war. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about these principles, the principle that we're created in the image of God, that he gives us our rights, the government doesn't, that we are citizens and not subjects. When the founders won the revolution, when they oversaw a nation that fought for its independence from, at the time, the most powerful country on the face of the planet, the sun never set on the British, my friends, in those days. The sun was always up on some piece of land that they occupied or owned or whatever. But when we won that victory, the founders could have said, we're now going to be your new government of a group of tyrants here. But they didn't. They said, we the people They said, we're going to tell our government what it's going to be. We're not going to then have a group of us come together and tell you what the new rules are now that we're in charge. Just the beauty of all these things, recognition of religious liberty, of free speech, of the right to protect ourselves by keeping and bearing arms. These things are good, my friends. The right to be secure in your property, in your person, from unreasonable searches from the government. They just can't come and turn your world upside down without probable cause, without a good reason to do so, which would include you doing something potentially illegal that they have evidence of, or at least good reason to think may be happening. All these things are built into our system. And you look at the prosperity that followed. My goodness, look at the good things that have come from this country, from innovation to advances in medicine and healthcare. Now, I know we've been lied to about our food, and modern medicine is just, there's problems in all of these things. Right? There are people, individual capitalists, who are trying to game the system and create their own little monopolies or get rid of competition to protect their nest egg and all that stuff and get us addicted to this product. I understand all that stuff's happening, and that stuff needs to be policed better and all that sort of stuff. I think we're making steps toward those things. But if you look at the overall advancements and how the United States has played a role in lifting much of the remaining parts of the world out of poverty or improving their day-to-day circumstances, their standard of living. Think of the number of missionaries and people who shared the gospel of Jesus Christ that have historically left the shores of this nation to proclaim the gospel on other shores. It's a remarkable thing, my friends. Unfortunately, now the United States is receiving. I don't have any problem, by the way, of people coming here to share the gospel from other countries, but we used to be the place that told others about Jesus. Now we need to hear about Jesus from others because we've forgotten. And we've got problems, and I acknowledge that. But for an Olympic athlete to think that he is representing a country that is somehow to be embarrassed of doesn't compute in my way of thinking at all. Shame here is treated as virtue. Confidence and identity, being proud of being American, that's eroded over time. Contempt for the president, contempt for this country is elevated over gratitude for this country. I think that that's crazy. The world stage is used for basically self-loathing and disapproval. And I think that's wild. And I've got more to say about it, and I'm not going to get to Andy Bashir on today's program. Maybe in the newsletter we'll write a little bit about that. But, my friends, if you're concerned about your heart health, if you're concerned about cholesterol, may I recommend taking a look at Solti. Solti is an all-natural, clinically proven, hear me say this, science has spoken on this, clinically proven by science to lower cholesterol. It's an all-natural supplement that's been clinically proven to do that, and it may be able to do the same for you. No prescriptions, no doctor's visits, none of that stuff. Not that there's anything wrong with that. You may need those things. I'm not here to talk about that, but this is a great place to start. It's very affordable. Solti.com is the website, SOLTEA. Promo code Todd's going to get you 50% off your first order, plus free shipping to boot. Solti.com, SOLTEA. Promo code Todd. Quick time out. Back in a minute. Welcome back, my friends. Third and final segment. And yes, I told you off the top I was going to get to two things. I'm not going to get to the second one because this is just, the more I've thought and talked about this, the situation where these American Olympic athletes are loathing, in some cases, America, or they're virtue signaling, whatever's going on there. It's just foreign to me. And yes, they can say it, but I can say what I'm going to say too. It's embarrassing. It should be embarrassing to them, but because of the media that we have and the anti-American sentiment that exists in media, not just here, but around the world, these folks feel comfortable saying these things. In fact, I would say they feel encouraged to say stuff like this. If you want to have If you want to get a bonus point, well, lots of bonus points with the media, say something like this and you'll be their darling for sure. My friends, let's be honest, when your financial world starts getting a little more complicated, you need more than one size fits all advice. That's where Full Suite Wealth shines the brightest, my friends. Their team specializes in working with families and individuals at that level, at the level where you've outgrown the generic, one-size-fits-all advice. You need people that can help give you personalized guidance that goes far, far beyond the basics. You need things like private equity, private credit, option strategies, coordinated legal planning. And those things need to be working in conjunction with one another. That's where Full Suite Wealth can help you. They help you see the big picture and make confident decisions about your legacy. It's about having a dedicated team guide you each and every step of the way so you can focus on what matters most, your family, your goals, your future. If you want real confidence in your financial life, head on over to fullsuitewealth.com. That's fullsuitewealth.com. Build your legacy, secure your future. Okay. Again, Andy Bashir, I will address that in today's Inner Circle, which again, that the Inner Circle is a newsletter. It's not even a news. It's basically a show summary. You'll have links to the show. It talks about what we talked about in the show. I can go into it a little bit deeper, the topics, give you the sources, give you the things that we've talked about, and then there's often things that we don't have time to get into. So this is a shareable version. This is a more this is a version that you can dig deeper and see some of the other information that I can't get to, or the sources, additional thoughts that I have, and then the Todd Talk's in there as well, other content on top of that. So toddhuffshow.com, if you want to sign up for that, it's free. It's called the Inner Circle. But as I said, there are things that have happened throughout history that America has done that I've not been happy with. I've not, the idea that the only people that are ever unhappy with politics are people who are anti-Trumpers or who hate Trump is a wild thing to suggest. I mean, you endured nearly 10% inflation under Biden. You endured open borders. You endured quite possibly a pay-to-play scandal that dates back, allegedly, to his time as vice president of the United States, Hunter Biden, all this stuff that's been happening, that could have allegedly been happening, that could have jeopardized Americans' safety, America's standing in the world, all those sorts of things. We endured a lot, and to act like the only problem is Trump is crazy. This reminds me of a story. I'm not embarrassed. I wouldn't be embarrassed of this country even if we had a bad president. I don't even think like that. I think, why are knuckleheads electing these people? That's what I think. Doesn't embarrass me. And where do we get off? The behavior is so self-aggrandizing here, to where they just think, my spirit is just embarrassed of my fellow Americans. Get a life, dude. You're a skier. That's great. I'm glad you can do it. I don't care if you're embarrassed of how I voted or not. I'm perplexed that people defend lawlessness. I'm perplexed that people defend a morally bankrupt ideology that's being perpetrated on the American people by the godless radical left. That's what I'm not embarrassed by it. I'm flat out confused by it. I understand the allure. I just don't understand why people take the bait. But I would never say I'm embarrassed to be an American. What does that even mean? This country is a wonderful place, the greatest place on earth. Reminds me when I was a senior in high school. We were getting trounced by Tri-West, my football team. And at halftime, our coach laid into us. And he asked one of the players, that player was not me, he said, "Are you embarrassed to be a Monrovia Bulldog?" And my teammate said, "Yeah, I am a little bit right now." And our coach, Scott West, lost his mind. You shouldn't be embarrassed of this is who you are. This is this is part of your identity. This is what are you talking about? You're embarrassed. And he was addressing, in a way, some of the bigger problems we had at the time, which was that we had been struggling with losing seasons, and part of it was because some of those players, I think, felt like they were maybe didn't belong out there, or they were second tier or third tier. And he was trying to make that point. And he lost his mind on my friend. But he was right. And I feel the same way about this. What do you mean you're embarrassed to be an American? You live in the greatest nation on the face of the planet that has done more good around the world than you could possibly imagine. If there wasn't a United States of America, this world would be a darker, darker place. What are you talking about? Olympic athletes? Yes, you have the right to say it. It's just crazy that you would. I've got to go. Have a great day. I'm proud to be American. I hope you are too. SDG.